I'm Chris Carter. This is the Locked On Steelers podcast, and we are going to do our full episode breaking down what happened in the Steelers' 20-12 loss to the Houston Texans in their preseason game. While I think the offensive line as a whole looked bad, Zach Frazier looked good. Also, defensive line looked very good, but there were several things that were sloppy about the game. We'll break down all of that here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show in your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. All right, Steelers fans, let's get into it. Let's talk about this loss that happened in this game. Now, again, preseason final scores don't really matter that much. It's, you can win. The Steelers went undefeated in the preseason last year, and they still ended up with the 10-7 record. But let's get into a few things that we noticed in here. And if you watched my minute-long reaction video after the game that I posted on YouTube Shorts, Instagram, TikTok, you got the gist of where I was kind of going at this game. But I thought that the sloppiness, as Mike Tomlin called it, was evident. You could see the mistakes left and right, the botched snaps between Nate Herbig and Justin Fields, missed blocks, just lack of attention to detail in certain things. Calvin Austin's drop in the end zone, Kyle Allen overthrowing him to lead to the drop in the end zone. Little things like that across the board kind of killed what could have been big moments. And I think that was kind of the message that Mike Tomlin was relaying at the end. He even said, Justin Fields was having good moments up until those crucial mistakes. And it's kind of interesting that Justin Fields took responsibility and Nate Herbig took responsibility. Both said it was on them. Individually, it was on each of them, and that, trying to protect each other's teammates. And that's a good sign. What's not a good sign is that you have two drive killing botched snaps that kind of can take things out of whack for you. And I thought, there were a lot of notes to have about the offensive line. One, Troy Fautanu has a knee injury. We don't know how serious he left with I believe it was on his left knee. It was a knee brace on it when he was leaving. And then, the Steelers noted that there was an apparent knee injury. We don't know when that happened. I'm going to try to look up the tape and see if I can figure out when exactly this happened. I'm literally recording this like 1 a.m. in the morning after this game. So apologies, I don't have full film breakdowns on everything just yet. But again, on Troy Fautanu, it doesn't seem to be a major injury because, I didn't even notice him get pulled from the game with it. And, this is a guy with, he's had, an ACL injury before, but there's no indication that it's that or anything like that because he was not on crutches or anything like that. I think that he's fine. Might have just got banged up or whatever. But even without that, Troy Fautanu gave up 2 sacks in this game. I thought that was not a good sign, or not a good start, rather, for his NFL career. And by and large, the offensive line, especially the starting offensive line in this game, did not move people enough. The run game is supposed to be a factor in the Steelers offense, and it wasn't in the first 2 drives where they had the first team offense out there. Now, they kept some of the parts of the first team offense out there, but when they did, one of the players they switched off when they did keep some of the parts, they switched off Nate Herbig and put in Zach Frazier, the rookie out of West Virginia, who everyone's been waiting to ascend to the starting role so they can finally have a natural center position guy there. And Zach Frazier looked right at home. And I think it's a very encouraging sign. I saw him pick up blitzes. I saw him move guys out of the hole to create space in the run game. And in fact, I think I tweeted this during the game, but in the opening 2 drives, whenever the Steelers tried to run the ball, and I think they had 3 runs total during that period. I think it was 3 runs and they had 2 yards, and that was just, that was kind of a sign that they weren't moving the piles at all. And that was not a good sign. But when Zach Frazier come in, 3 runs, 2 yards in the 2 drives with Nate Herbig at center. But when you put Zach Frazier in at center, it was 4 carries for 20 yards. So averaging less than a yard per carry to averaging 5 yards per carry. That was the difference there. And again, it's just a preseason size. It doesn't mean that Zach Frazier's he's done it and they're always going to average 5 yards per carry. But I think you could clearly see a difference between the two playing. So I thought that was a good positive for the offensive line. In the day, there weren't that many positives. Even Broderick Jones didn't look too great. And granted, this is the first start with with this new offensive line in this new system. No Isaac Seumalo, rookie Zach Frazier, rookie Troy Fautanu trying to fit in. I think that there's a lot of boxes that needed to be checked. But again, I thought it was encouraging to see what Zach Frazier did when he was given the chance to jump in. Here was Zach Frazier when I got to catch up with him in the locker room after the game.
You guys went from, before you were in, they were probably running 1 or 2 yards to play. When you get in, you guys are actually 5 yards to pop. What did you guys feel like you were able to do on the ground when you got on the field?
The backs definitely did a good job, had some great runs. We were just all trying to do our job and get a hat on a hat and, break some runs. That's it.
Did you guys feel like there was some cohesiveness from all the physicality that you guys had in practice that translated to
Yeah, definitely. I mean, over the last couple of weeks, we've definitely gotten closer and closer every practice. I feel like we're gelling. I mean, still always can get better. But I felt like the communication was pretty good, and we're all on the same page tonight. I'm always pretty hard on myself, so always can be better.
So Zach Frazier very humble after the game, and I don't think that he knocked a home run out of the park with this performance in the preseason, but I do think that he was solid, and he showed that he can be the starting center over Nate Herbig, which kind of was the foregone conclusion there. I think Zach Frazier after this game is going to be given a chance to run the first team offense more next week. We also heard from Mike Tomlin that he does expect Russell Wilson to start the next preseason game. And we'll get into Justin Fields in a little bit here. I thought that he played solidly. I don't think he wowed anything, but he showed he can be on time with his throws and his rhythm. The only times that he wasn't was when he was either A, sacked, or B, his receiver was called for not making a catch when he did make a catch. And I thought that all in all, Justin Fields was solid, not great, but good enough in his performance that if he was a starting quarterback in that game and there were some more live situations, the Steelers could have eventually scored on offense with him at the helm there. So so again, I thought Justin Fields was fine. Still think, as I've said all along, Russell Wilson's going to be QB1, and I think this will be the week for him to show just how routine he makes all the routine things, and that's what Justin Fields even said. He needs to be more routine, and the offense as a whole needs to be more routine in what they do routine things routinely. I think that's something that's going to definitely show its face in a little bit here. We talked about the offensive line and how Zach Frazier really signed while Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu didn't, but we got to talk about the defensive line because I thought they showed out pretty well, and that was a very good sign for the direction the Steelers are headed on defense and in a game where they're missing lots of people. Well, we'll talk all about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you, this show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the app you can download right to your phone today to buy tickets to all your favorite events without it being stressful. Game Time is where you can book tickets to all your favorite sporting events and so much more. And with it being summer, that means it's baseball season. So get tickets to your favorite ball club play and be able to watch them play with Game Time and go to the Game Time app to get those tickets. Whether you're in Pittsburgh, you want to see rookie phenom Paul Skeens pitch on the mound for the Pirates, or you're in Los Angeles to watch Shohei Ohtani be a world sensation for the Dodgers, Game Time has got you wherever you go. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets to all your sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They give you killer deals on last-minute tickets, and their best price guarantee can't be beat as you save up to 60% off when you buy tickets up to the last minute for sports, concerts, and so many more. And their best price guarantee means that if you find tickets in the same section of row for less somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference of those prices. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase, or go to their website, gametime.co. Terms and conditions apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue today's episode talking about the Steelers' loss to the Houston Texans. I talked about the offensive line and how I thought there were a lot of problems with it. They didn't get enough push in the run initially. Zach Frazier had to come in, and I thought he was solid, and I thought there was potential there. But I also feel like, they could have been better. But I also feel like the defensive line didn't have that problem. I thought like the defensive line, despite Cam Hayward not playing, I thought that they played very well. I thought they figured some things out. Keanu Benton looked like a force. I think it was either a second or a third down early on where you just see him come up the pressure on C.J. Stroud, and he chases C.J. Stroud and forces him to throw an errant pass. Like that kind of stuff, that's the stuff you wanted to see out of Keanu Benton. Could he take that step forward and get that pressure? But also, a guy named DeMarvin Leal was getting pressure. Not just pressure, he got a sack and a pass breakup that I thought led to an interception. They didn't call an interception in the game. But I think that, you look at the young defensive linemen, and they showed some real promise with their ability to get after the quarterback and to, play in the spots they are. But DeMarvin Leal is a very interesting case because if you missed out right before the kickoff, Marcus Golden retired, the Steelers outside linebacker who they brought in back from free agency to play. So him retiring kind of opens up that fourth slot that they still need to fill, with another edge rusher. And that's where DeMarvin Leal, as we've noted for years, has been a tweener and could fit in right away and make that work if he's able to put it together and be a playmaker. So, I got a chance to talk one-on-one with DeMarvin Leal after the game. I thought it was he gave some good feedback on some of the things that the coaches were talking to him about and how he's getting ready. So here's DeMarvin Leal after a game where I thought that he was one of the better Steelers players out there.
Break up in the pre-accident. How do you feel about your performance?
Just wanted to continue from training camp, build off of that, and just be confident in myself, prove who I am, and just keep going from there. It's been real comfortable just getting it all together, putting it all together so we can get it rolling for the season.
What's it been like in your conversation with coaches about doing that? They wanted you to be successful inside.
As long as I'm successful inside and I'm showing I know what I can do and I'm be able to make plays in inside, I believe they'll allow me to be on the outside as well and show what I can do there as well. It's just showing that you can do one thing in one place and then I can play multiple positions. So if I can do one thing in another, I can do it. You got to show I can do it on the outside as well.
It's something that they were doing. They talk about this player or did this develop? Like, hey, we want you more like out there.
Yeah, this kind of just developed throughout the camp. Coach came up to me, we talked, and we just got straight to work.
You work more with Denzel when you do that stuff? Or you still work with Carl?
Both of them, they work together. They do a fantastic job coaching everybody together. So they just be 1-2 right together.
So if you couldn't hear my question to DeMarvin at the end there, I was asking if he's been working also with Denzel Martin, the Steelers offensive line, outside linebackers coach. Denzel Martin, a huge part of that defense, one of the more vocal leaders too in practice when you hear him and how he challenges players, and a huge part of helping T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, and that crew succeed. But the reason he's talking about that is because DeMarvin Leal has been playing some edge, and it's something that we've acknowledged in years past that it's something he could do, and it's the versatility that I think Mike Tomlin would welcome. And it seems like it was appreciated again in this game. He seemed to be flying up, making plays, and he seemed to be able to line up on the edge, get the matchup he wants, create pressure. But he also seemed to line up in the defense and help limit things over the middle. So I think DeMarvin Leal is in a really good space right now. I think that if he continues to grow, he could be that answer with Benton long term. Benton needs to also grow too, but I think there's a lot of things that work in the Steelers' favor when it comes to this defensive line. As far as a preseason start for the Steelers' defensive line, this was as good as you could probably hope for. Montrevious Adams also looked unstoppable at times with what he was able to do. So really good stuff from the Steelers' defensive line in this preseason game. But there's still a lot of different things that we haven't gotten a chance to go over yet. We still haven't talked, enough about Peyton Wilson and what he was able to do. We haven't talked about, different guys that were involved in the offense that might not have been just Justin Fields. We'll circle back on Justin Fields too. The point is, we got a lot to talk about still about this game. Stick here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We continue going over their preseason loss to the Houston Texans in week 1 of the NFL preseason. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you, this show is also brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job might just be open to the perfect role, but in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. So post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. To post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into more takeaways here. Shorter video as we're reacting, and it's late, going Friday night into Saturday morning here. Peyton Wilson was another player who I thought, and I talked with him a little bit, but we'll save his clip for the week. I thought early on he was impressive right away. He had a tackle for loss. When he's a guy, when he sees ball, he gets ball. He sees ball, he attacks ball. And I thought that was a good sign of that. But there were also times that I thought he over pursued. There were times I thought that he got lost in the sauce. Other times I thought that he was not good in coverage, and that's where he was supposed to be an expert. So I think it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that the Steelers are kind of doomed to accept that moving forward with him. And I think that he's going to grow. Peyton Wilson, that is. But I do think that it kind of shows like, hey, all right, everyone's excited about the potential of him. He's big, he's fast, he's looked good in camp. Now he knows what to work on, and I think that he's a guy that when we talk to him, he's always talking about how he's looking to improve. Now he has something to do so with. Joey Porter Jr. getting called for a defensive, a pass interference call. Well, not the best look at all, and something that I think the Steelers have been trying to press him to get out of, and he's not out of it yet. So also something to look out for there. But I think that one thing that shouldn't be understated about this, about how this game played out, was the structure of the offense made a ton of sense. When they called play action, it was at the right moments. It created open space. It created playmaking opportunities. And I thought that was a really good thing to see. And part of it was the rhythm that was just naturally with the offense and was able to help Justin Fields, find the right guys, the right times to get the right reads, even if it was a check down. So I thought the structure of the offense, and that's on Arthur Smith, was good to better. I think that's a really big telling sign that they were just that comfortable. I think with kind of operating in the offense. Again, it's a new offense in front of a live opponent that's not your own team for the first time, and I thought it was a good sign that they got that kind of power. So so staying on task, Justin Fields being who he was in this game. I didn't think Justin Fields was spectacular, but again, I think he was solid. I think he got the job done. I think it's going to be really interesting moving forward how this Steelers team, how Mike Tomlin addresses this Steelers team and how they need to bounce back from what they've done. Because like he said, this was a JV performance. This is a sloppy performance. Again, these are things that he literally said. these are things that show like, hey, the attention to detail, maybe it's there, but it's not showing up in these moments. And I think that's where the Steelers are trying to put themselves in a position where they can continue to grow. You're going to see Peyton Wilson get better. You're going to see the offense be on time. And then you're not going to have botched snaps that kill drives. You're not going to have, plays where, it's ruled drops as much. So I say all that to say, I think the Steelers, there were certainly some really rough points in this game, but I also think they were very teachable moments. And that's the thing to focus on right now with the Steelers is what are the teachable moments that you saw in this game that you can take back to the film room, work with these players, get them back out there and eliminate those problems or at least mitigate those problems. And I think the Steelers are absolutely going to do that with this one. And with Mike Tomlin calling people out for being sloppy, I would not be shocked if Sunday is a padded practice and it gets really intense. So a lot of things to break down there. But by and large, Steelers lose their first preseason game. I thought there was some potential there with certain players that were on the roster or not on the roster anymore. But the Steelers defense, I know some people were fretting because they gave up a touchdown to CJ Stroud eventually in this game. But this is a defense that, again, didn't have Patrick Queen, didn't have Minka Fitzpatrick, didn't have Cam Hayward, didn't have TJ Watt, didn't have Alex Highsmith, 5 really important players to the defense. So I think that plays into it as well. But again, so many different facets as far as what we're going to be looking at here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm going to try to get my hands on some film of this preseason game, maybe some all 22 film if we can snag it, and then we'll go from there as far as what we saw in our full evaluations of how the Steelers performed in this game. So thanks again for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We'll talk more about what happened wrong at this loss and getting ready for things there. But we'll also look into all the other things, all the other storylines that are coming from this, like how serious is Troy Fautano's injury, and are the Steelers actually any closer to getting Brandon Ayuk in a trade, or is that a foreign concept? We're going to see all of that here soon over the next week or so on the Locked On Steelers podcast. From Chris Carter, thanks for tuning in. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down your Pittsburgh Steelers. Back Monday with a full episode.